Thank you so much for having me here. It is my pleasure and privilege to join you today at COP28. My name is Lucas Allen, and I'm a high school student at Upper Canada College in Toronto, Canada. I'm also the founder of ADRD, a nonprofit focused on Alzheimer's research. This topic is personal for me, as my grandfather, at 84 years of age, is in the advanced stages of dementia. In my opinion, understanding this disease is a better opportunity for my generation, as it is for us all. But it's not just about me personally. Global health is also a major focus area of COP28. As Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber said, the climate challenge is increasingly becoming a health challenge. You can no longer divide them. And expanding further, he said climate decisions are also health decisions. Against this backdrop, I would now like to introduce the subject I wish to discuss with you today, the relationship between climate change and Alzheimer's disease. In preparation for the speech, I consulted Professor Chen Si at the School of Public Health at Yale University. Professor Si has analyzed the impacts of air pollution on health outcomes in countries worldwide. He underscored the gravity of this additional challenge associated with climate change. The fact is that it's not intuitive. While it can be difficult to fathom, there are two modalities in which climate and dementia are intertwined. Firstly, it turns out that air pollution is the leading cause of cognitive impairment, the same kind of pollution that contributes to climate change. Secondly, a growing body of evidence shows that neurodegeneration is exacerbated by heat stress from climate change. Let's explore these relationships further, starting with air pollution. One of the main pathways for air pollution to impair cognitive ability is through fine particulates, also known as PM2.5. These particles are emitted through the burning of fossil fuels, and they remain airborne for long periods of time, penetrating into buildings and indoor air, as well as the environment. Professor Si's research shows that those of us living in polluted areas have higher PM2.5 concentrations in our brains, based on post-mortem analysis. As it turns out, those people also have smaller brains on average. In a separate study, cognitive scientist Jeff Morgan Stibble from the Natural History Museum in California corroborated this finding. Looking at human skulls over 50,000 years, brain sizes were significantly smaller during periods of warmer climates when compared to cooler ones. This reality is quite shocking to me, given that my generation is growing up during a warmer era. Will we lack the gray matter needed to flourish in the decades ahead? We therefore see the distinctive link between climate change and dementia. As we burn fossil fuels, we emit particulates that in turn impair our cognition over the long term. Given these findings are still fairly recent, the pathology is not fully understood. The particulates catalyze the formation of tangles and amyloid plaques in the brain, but further research is still needed. Now, let's look at the second contributing factor, which is heat stress. It turns out that once an individual suffers from dementia, heat stress makes it worse. Some fascinating research was conducted by Dr. Dante Caligui and his team in the Ministry of Health in Spain. He found that emergency hospital admissions jumped 23% for dementia sufferers when the ambient temperature rises above the heatwave threshold of 34 degrees Celsius. In other words, dementia patients are less able to cope with heat stress than the population at large. In fact, one might expect that chronic heat stress would accelerate the progression of dementia. When we consider that up to 2% of the global population could have dementia, this outlook is rather stark. For the challenges ahead, we'll need all the cognitive power we can get. And so, these global health challenges will only become more pressing in the years to come. Yes, we can attempt to make lifestyle improvements individually to reduce the risk of dementia. Diet, exercise, and socialization can all help with cognitive functioning. What we cannot easily mitigate, however, is the growing climate impacts on this disease. And it's quite plausible that negative climate impacts will start to outweigh whatever improvements we individually can make. Therefore, I will propose 3 steps to address this issue. Firstly, let's recognize how severely air pollution actually affects our own neurological health. Secondly, let's recognize that addressing climate change is to improve our own health outcomes. And lastly, let's push for more research and awareness so we can take action locally and nationally. It is my hope that COP28 becomes a turning point on this issue. I sincerely hope you'll join me in championing this cause. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lucas Allen, founder of ADRD Research Institute, for this presentation, and also for your work as a researcher. I really am impressed because you are still young, you are doing all these researches. Really, bravo, as we say in French. Good work. I would like to learn more about this institution, ADRD. How do you work? How many people are in the group, and especially the methodology of your research?
Right, so the methodology is to understand Alzheimer's disease better. And so it's a little bit of an unknown disease, there's no cure for it, and diagnosing it is very challenging as it's a cognitive disease. So how do you know whether a person has Alzheimer's disease or not? And so everyone around the world, like there are tons of people who know people who have Alzheimer's disease. And lots of people have friends or family who have Alzheimer's disease. And so our research is based on understanding the relationships between climate change and Alzheimer's. And I was working with Professor Chen Si at Yale, and he's published a study showing that actually 1 microgram per meters cubed increase in PM 2.5 can have a rate of 1% to 3% increase in dementia. That's based on over like a couple 100,000 cases. And we're also just researching as well diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. How do you diagnose Alzheimer's disease? Because it's just a cognitive ability, how do you know whether someone's just becoming forgetful or whether they actually have the disease?
Okay. You talked also about innovation. Do you think there is enough political will to invest more or innovation from your own perspective? Do you feel that there is a political will, or we should push for that more?
I feel like there definitely needs to be actually more of a political push. And this is because Alzheimer's patients, they can't really express themselves. My grandfather, he's losing his cognitive ability. He can't really explain himself. He can't even speak. And so we need other people, such as youth, to speak up for these dementia patients. And there's so many people with dementia, like 55 million people worldwide. And there's just not enough attention on that. We need more people to work on this issue.
And we need to invest more in innovation, right?
Yeah, for sure. We need to invest more in innovation, especially in like new ways to figure out whether people have been diagnosed, and also like research on the relationship between climate change and Alzheimer's disease, because there's very limited research on that.
And please, Lucas, this is my special demand. Can you share with us your research? Because really, this is really interesting what you are doing. And I think Adam agreed with me. We need to learn more about your research and what we are doing, because really this is important, not only with us, but with all the participants. So please share with us your work and your research. We are